The long wait is finally over. The Nintendo Switch 2 is here, and we can finally put our hands on this thing. I've had the Switch 2 for less than 48 hours, but that doesn't mean there aren't already so many things I found out. So here's 100 facts about the Nintendo Switch 2 that you should know. When the Switch 2 boots up, it'll play this cute little animation showing all the menu features coming to life, getting you ready for your Switch 2 adventure. There's also menu music that plays in the startup menu when setting up the system. It really is too bad that it's not in the main Switch 2 menu. In the new Change Grip Order menu, you can play little tunes using the L and R buttons. That's because each button is its own note on the musical scale. The Switch 2 can be system locked with a pin that you can set yourself in the settings. However, there will also be a screen lock like on the Switch 1. It also has unique sound effects based on which buttons you press. The Switch 2, when both Joy-Cons are attached, has 25 buttons, the most buttons in Nintendo console history. Download play from the Nintendo DS is back. On the Switch 2, it's called Game Share. With compatible games, you'll be able to share the fun with your friends locally over Game Chat. This feature will also work with Switch 1 consoles that want to receive games from Switch 2 consoles. The Switch 2 will also allow you to take 15,000 screenshots in 1,500 video recordings. In comparison, the Switch 1 could only save 10,000 screenshots in 500 recordings. The Switch 2 will also allow you to save screenshots and recordings to your micro SD card for double the storage, something the Switch 1 could never do. The Switch 2 now has 2 USB-C ports. Now you can charge twice as fast. If you hold the control stick in any direction when opening the GameCube Classics app, the iconic GameCube startup will play. The basic white and basic black themes return, except here they've been renamed to basic light and basic dark. Next, let's get some basic common sense and sell us themes on the eShop. It's legitimately free money and they won't do it. The new game cards are bright red and exactly the same size as the Switch 1 game cards. If you're wondering, they do fit inside a Switch 1, but they obviously don't work. However, they do taste just as bad as the Switch 1 cartridges, if you were wondering. Some cartridges are also being shipped as game key cards that don't actually have the game on the game card, but act as a key to download and play the game on the console. The Switch 2 wall docked can run at 120Hz while in 1440p and 16Hz while in 4K. The console and Joy-Cons itself are much bigger than its predecessor. No more cramping hands during Mario Party. I can button mash with ease. The Switch 2's screen is a 7.9-inch LCD display, not OLED, but with all the other hardware upgrades they made, they needed to do something to keep the price down, and if we're being honest, the screen is pretty good anyways. The blue and red asymmetrical color scheme is back, but this time with nice accents around the Joy-Con magnets and joysticks. The Switch 2 is equipped with a noise-canceling microphone that will block background noise and just capture your voice during game chat. Speaking of game chat, the Switch 2 finally brings voice chat to their system, allowing you and your friends to talk, see each other face to face, and even share your screen while gaming. And in case you're wondering, that's what the C button is for. It pulls up the game chat menu for all your multiplayer shenanigans. You can turn on display speech as text in game chat, and it will display a transcript of your friend's call. This is definitely not a bad idea. You can also use text-to-speech in game chat that will speak for you if you don't want to speak on your own, or if you just want to spam text-to-speech.
www.
Also, if you're wondering, you don't need to buy the first-party Nintendo camera to use video in game chat. Any USB or USB-C camera will do. With the camera, you can choose one of 3 filters: full screen, no background, and face only. The back panel on your Switch 2 dock is completely removable and isn't attached to a swing mechanism like on the Switch 1 dock, so don't freak out when your dock pops off. It's supposed to do that. You can't use your Switch 1 AC adapter to power the new dock. You have to use the new one provided in the box. Your Switch will also automatically adjust game volume to make hearing your friends in game chat easier. This can be turned off in the game chat settings. Game chat will be free for all Nintendo Switch 2 users through March 31st, 2026. The Switch 2 has 256 gigabytes of internal storage, However, if 256 gigs isn't enough for you, be sure to get a micro SD express card, as regular micro SDs will not be compatible. While regular micro SDs aren't compatible, they are able to transfer photo album data from the Switch 1 to the Switch 2 during system transfer. The codename for the Nintendo Switch 2 was Ounce. While I'm not quite sure I understand that codename, they also called the Wii U Project Cafe before launch, so maybe these names just come at random and don't really mean anything. Every single Nintendo-developed game for the Switch is compatible with the Switch 2 except for Nintendo Labo VR, as the screen size is too big to fit in the cardboard casings. However, some Nintendo-developed games such as 1-2-Switch and Ring Fit Adventure aren't compatible with the new Joy-Cons. However, you can just hook up your old Joy-Cons and play them on the Switch 2. All Pro Controllers and Joy-Cons will also be compatible. However, you might want to find a place to store your old Joy-Cons, as they obviously won't attach to the side of your console anymore. The Nintendo Switch Online library of games has been renamed to Nintendo Classics going forward. This was revealed along with the announcement of the GameCube Nintendo Classics service. The first 3 games available at launch for GameCube Nintendo Classics library are The Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker, F-Zero GX, and Soul Calibur 2. Nintendo will also be selling a wireless GameCube controller exclusive to Nintendo Switch Online members. In the GameCube Nintendo Classics app, you can play both the NTSC and PAL versions of these games, which are basically the exact same game, but just with different frame rates. Mouse controls can be used on Switch menus to move around and click with a cursor. In the controller settings, you can swap the A and B buttons, so hitting A triggers B and hitting B triggers A. The Nintendo eShop now has a For You tab that will recommend you games based on your preferences. If you're a Nintendo Switch Online member, you can buy both the Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom upgrade pack for no additional cost. With these upgrade packs, you can now use the brand new Nintendo Switch Online app game service known as Zelda Notes. The touchscreen has the ability to differentiate multiple different screen touches at once. The HD Rumble has been remade from the ground up. It's attached to the back of the Joy-Cons and vibrates side to side to create the illusion of motion inside. The Joy-Cons have up to 20 hours of battery life. Nintendo has removed the IR sensor from the right Joy-Con on the Switch 2. I guess no more hot dogs for us. Nom nom nom. The Switch 2 Pro Controller and Switch 2 Charging Grip have 2 back buttons labeled GL and GR. These can be mapped to your own desire. Virtual game cards are now a new way to easily transfer digital games from one console to another. All you need is to be on the same Wi-Fi network and either have a second Nintendo Switch or a Nintendo Switch on the same family plan. That way, you can now share digital games with others. The Switch 2 can add up to 300 friends, which is the exact same amount as the Switch 1. The eShop has been updated from its classic orange theming to a striking Nintendo red. The new game card slot has been remodeled to fit snugly around the game card, to ensure it stays securely in place, unlike the Switch 1's game slot. When doing a Switch 2 transfer, your Switch 2 will recognize your theme preference from the Switch 1 and choose to set your color scheme for you. Speaking of system transfer, if you want to do it, make sure you do it as soon as you decide to use your console, as you cannot go back and do a full system transfer from settings. Game Chat requires you to agree to a user agreement that states that all audio and video will be recorded temporarily on the system. This data will only be seen by Nintendo if a report has been placed on a user in Game Chat. For extra security, if you want to use Game Chat, you need to verify your phone number and text message. Game Chat, as of now, is only available between Switch Online friends. There appears to be no online public lobbies, which, with cameras, that's probably for the best. On top of all that, you can only game chat with friends in which you have approved to game chat, and friends who have approved you for game chat. The extra USB slot on the back of the Switch 1 dock has been replaced for an Ethernet port for faster internet speeds. The new Joy-Con straps don't have SL and SR buttons. The straps are more of an outline now, having you push those buttons through the strap. In the accessibility settings menu, there are many ways to make your Switch 2 more accessible. These include button mapping, bold text size adjustments, text-to-speech, and more. You can also turn on invert colors and grayscale, if that's something you're into. The Switch 2 game boxes are the same dimensions as the Switch 1 game boxes. You could skip the user selection screen before entering software by disabling it in the user settings. In system settings, you can choose to set the console to stop charging around 90% to help reduce battery decay over time. You can display the battery percentage on your console by going into system settings and turning on system battery. Game vouchers, a Nintendo Switch Online perk that would allow you to buy 2 Switch games for only $100, is not available for Switch 2 titles. However, you can still buy them on the Switch 2 eShop and use them on Switch 1 games. Rewind functionality has been added to the N64 Nintendo Classics library, making it easier to enjoy these titles with less effort. As of now, streaming services like Hulu and YouTube no longer work on the Switch 2 and will display an error message. The new kickstand is a massive improvement over the original Switch and can go a whole 150 degrees. The kickstand is U-shaped instead of taking up half the console like on the OLED model. This is to free up more space inside the actual console for a bigger battery and a bigger fan. The Switch 2 screen is equipped with HDR, a technique that's used to make brighter light brighter and make colors pop more. The screen also has a variable refresh rate that can help reduce choppiness during high demanding games. The Switch 2's game cards are approximately 5 times faster than the Switch 1 game cards. While the new game cards are the same physical size and can fit in the Switch 1 game slot, there actually is one physical difference besides color that can actually help tell the console what kind of card it is. On the bottom right corner of the game card, there is this little notch, and this tells the console it's either a Switch 1 game or a Switch 2 game. The Joy-Con 2's mouse controls were specifically designed to also work on your lap. This way you can play your mouse-supported games on your couch. In case you didn't know, the optical sensor on the Joy-Cons and normal everyday mice are little black and white cameras with super low resolutions. This is how the mouse checks direction and speed. Putting mouse controls alongside the Joy-Con's gyroscope allow the player to both move and rotate the cursor when available. This actually isn't the first mouse Nintendo ever produced. They also had the SNES mouse and N64 mouse, which used the old school technique of a ball rolling surface. The Joy-Cons detach from the magnetic sides of the console with this little mechanism here. You simply push the lever and this little mechanism pushes the top of the Joy-Cons away from the console. The new magnetic Joy-Cons can actually be attached to the wrong side without damaging the console. They actually advertise it in Welcome Tour. They can also be attached backwards, however, they won't charge in this orientation. SL and SR buttons are made of steel and drawn to the big magnets on the side of the console. They also have a little wiggle room in their casing to make it more difficult to detach the Joy-Cons on accident. The little tiny gap here between the console and the Joy-Cons was also a purposeful addition to make twisting the Joy-Cons out of the console much harder. The speakers slope diagonally downwards out of the console, but the sound is edited internally to make it sound as it's shooting forward. The Switch 2 console can tell what angle the kickstand is set to with its internal gyroscope. The HD Rumble 2 can actually be used as a speaker and play music and sound effects through sound waves created with the internal motor. Nintendo removed the roundness of the front of the Joy-Con grip to make magnetic Joy-Cons a possibility. It's not the most comfortable thing in the world, but it beats the tiny buttons on the original. Game Chat was inspired by Nintendo developers during the COVID-19 pandemic, feeling disconnected during a time of isolation. They decided to implement Game Chat in the new console to bring couch co-op online, and to make it feel like your friends were actually there playing with you. The new dock has a fan that helps cool down the console while in TV mode. The new Joy-Con straps have a little piece of plastic at the end of them to keep the lock from riding all the way up the strap and having to pick it free with your fingers. While globally, the Nintendo Switch 2 is not region-locked. Japan is selling a region-locked version of the console at a significant discount, equivalent to $334 USD. Paul Rudd came back in 2025 to film a commercial for the Switch 2, an homage to his iconic 1991 Super Nintendo commercial. Nintendo is promoting the Switch 2 on the sleeve of every Seattle Mariners 2025 jersey with a custom Nintendo Switch 2 patch. The Nintendo Switch 2 is Nintendo's 8th home console and released 42 years and 10 days after the original NES was released. Thanks everybody for watching the video. If you enjoyed this video and you're looking for more Nintendo Switch 2 coverage, check out this video right here. Alright, thanks for watching and I'll see you next time. Bye!